Matt Bernier, joined by DRF National Handicapper Mike Watchmaker, the second of three for this Saturday's Weekend Warrior, the second from Parks. It's going to be race number 9, the Grade 3 Gallant Bob for 3-year-olds, going 3/4 of a mile on the main track. You're going to have an entry in here, Mike, that's going to be a prohibitive favorite in here, the combination of Petrov and Coalfront. You're going to go against them with excitations.
I am, but if the entry of Coalfront and Petrov is 2-1, like it is on the morning line, I might reassess. But I think they're going to be considerably shorter than that morning line price. And either one of those horses can win, and I'm sure we'll get to them in a moment. But I'm going with Excitations, who finished second to Coalfront last time in his last start in the Amsterdam Stakes at Saratoga, because I thought the race he ran in the Amsterdam was terrific. Coalfront had 2 huge edges that day when he beat Excitations in the Amsterdam. Number one, he was the controlling speed in that 6.5 furlong race. And he really was kind of unpressured in the early stages. And that put Excitations, who's a closer, in something of a strategical hole. And the other thing is that on that day at Saratoga, speed was really, really good, especially in sprint races. Now, the rail was also good, and, Excitations did rally up the rail, but speed was absolutely carrying in sprint races. And for Excitations to come from as far back off the pace as he was in the early stages of the Amsterdam, to finish second, beating only a little bit more than a length for all the money, I thought it was a winning performance. And, I've been waiting to take him back against Coalfront, and now here I have that opportunity. I mean, all of Excitation's sprint races have been good. I mean, he's bred to run much longer than this, but if you look at his sprint races, they've all been very good. And he's still, I think he's still got other steps forward in him. I think he could develop some more. I like him. And my hope is, because there isn't a tremendous amount of early speed in this race, and Coalfront might be the controlling speed again, but I think that the California Shipper American Pastime, I think his best chance is to go a little bit early here and try and keep Coalfront a little bit honest on the front end. And if he does that, it'll be more honest than Coalfront was kept in the Amsterdam, and I think that will help Excitations as well.
Let's talk a little bit more about Coalfront. Do you think it was just a matter of facing better horses in the Allen Jerkins that compromised him, or do you think that was a step back, knowing that he had to come from off the pace that day?
I think it was both. He wasn't fast enough early for that field. He's a horse that's been accustomed to being very close to the early pace, and he wasn't that day. Still, he was in a position to make a dent in the race, and instead he backed up. It was a step back, and it was a better field. And I think, the cutback from 7 to 6 furlongs at this point in his career is probably a good one for him. It's just that, he could win. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. He won his first 3 starts like a very nice horse, but, I think maybe he was exposed a little bit in the Allen Jerkins.
The other half of the coupled entry is Petrov. His most recent win against allowance older horses was visually strong. They chose to bypass the Allen Jerkins. They show up here. Is this a matter of this horse has wanted to go one turn all along, and this is kind of what he's been asking for?
Yeah, that's how I felt about Petrov for quite a while now. And he's very much for the same barn. He's very much this year's version of Whitmore. Whitmore last year was on the Kentucky Derby Trail in Arkansas, and the races were too long for him, and then they finally cut him back to a sprint. And he said he's been very good, although he's lost his last 2 starts. He's been very accomplished as a sprinter, and I think Petrov is very much the same kind of horse. And it just disturbs me. There's common ownership between Petrov and Coalfront, because Bob LaPenta, who owns Coalfront, is one of the main owners of Coalfront, also has a piece of Petrov. I don't understand why in this day and age, I guess it's because it's Pennsylvania, but it's a $300,000 stake race. I don't know why Petrov and Coalfront are coupled in here, because I think Petrov is the more dangerous horse of this entry, and he's the horse I fear the most in here. And if they were separate betting interests, he would be, I think, a significantly bigger price than Coalfront.
Before we move on from this race, we have to touch on the horse you briefly mentioned. That's the West Coast Shipper American Pastime for Bob Hess. Kent DeSormo makes the trip over here. This is an interesting runner that it seems like they have taken their time making sure that let's get him some foundation. Let's take our time, make sure he's good to go before we throw him into the deep end. Do you think he's ready for a test like this?
You might be right, Matt. I look at him the other way. I looked at the fields that he was running at out there in California, and I'm just not impressed with him. He was beaten in his second career start at 1-5 by Stormy Rocket, who was a turf, and that was on the dirt, who was a turf sprinter here in the East. So, and I looked at the field that he beat most recently, and it wasn't a particularly imposing one. I think even though he's got buyer figures that say that he should be competitive in this race, he is meeting a much, much, much tougher brand of horse in this spot.
Race number 9 Saturday afternoon at Parks. It is the Grade 3 Gallant Bob. You're going to have a very, very heavy favorite in here. The coupled entry of Petrov and Coal Front. Mike's going to go with Excitations with Javier aboard. Find out if he can turn the tables for that result in the Amsterdam. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the third and final race for this Saturday's Weekend Warrior. We go down to Churchill Downs for the Dogwood.